So the configuration of this, let's say, mini PC is slightly different, where a lot of these mini PCs are using metal cases or metal housing. Gives a little bit of a premium feel. But let's open it up. Let's see what we can find in the inside. Let's be very gentle, because sometimes they're sticking something to it. Yep, like I thought. The fan, and what is kind of cool that they implemented a fan with a piece of metal, some thermal pads for giving the NVMe cooling. And the NVMe, yeah, that is going to be absolutely a very nice gimmick, or actually gimmick, something we'll be needing, because the NVMe's can become really hot. However, what is kind of cool that when it comes to upgradability, we do have the option to implement 2 NVMe's if you want to. However, that's kind of interesting, because you can see that we do have 2 NVMe slots. Okay, so that's absolutely awesome. So one of the things you don't see very often. The weird thing is there is no mod RAM, and that is going to be maybe his downfall, because when it comes to the RAM modules, it's not upgradable. Okay, so there's one thing I actually wanted to do is looking into what kind of CPU or chipset we're actually going to be using, or what they're using. So this is an interesting one. We're having over here the AMD Ryzen 5. This is the 7545U. This is the first time I've actually seen it. So it's actually made for premium laptops, and of course they're using this in the mini PC. So let's go to the general specifications. So when it comes to this, it is actually the 7000 series, but it makes sense, of course, Captain Obvious. But over here we're having 6 cores, we're having 12 threads, and we have a max boost of 4.9 GHz. But I think what was even more interesting, so the max TDP is 28 watt over here, that they say we have a comfortable, let's say, TDP. If you can change it out, you want to tweak with it, but not to an extreme format. So the max operation is 100 Celsius. But what makes it even more interesting is this, like, what's going on with the graphics. So they're using the AMD Radeon 740M. So it's not the 780M, so I'm really curious how will this thing perform against the 780M in the more, let's say, high-end versions of the AMD Ryzen. So if you're going to be looking at the Radeon 740M versus the 780M that we're known with, like a lot of mini PCs I've reviewed, you can actually see what's going on. So when it comes to the wattage and everything, so the 740M is not that powerful. Let's say 50% less power than the 780M. And what's kind of cool, they have like this statistic where you can actually check out what's going on, what kind of different GPUs and how much power it is. So you can actually see that the 780M is getting really close to the GTX 1650. It's like a little bit of a small, let's say, difference between it, but that's what makes this 780M pretty cool. But now with the 740M, we do have less power. So how will that result if you're going to be playing games, let's say AAA games, and how far can we then actually push it? Or do we still have like a lot of limitations? Well, let's go into the emulation flow and let's plug in the PioPrit USB stick. You also have hard drives and everything, also have a retrobit solutions. But let's plug this thing in and let's see how far we can push it when it comes to emulation. Can we do some internal, let's say, upscaling, or are we just stuck with a lot of low-end native resolution because of the low-end GPU? So let's find out and let's have some fun, because this is going to be an overall interesting part. But let's go with the flow and let's do a little bit of an emulation testing if my Retrobot wants to boot up. Hello? Hello? Why the freaking hell is this thing so slow? Oh, there he is. So when it comes to, let's say, the Retrobot, let's take a close look at some emulation and let's see what we can do. You know, when it comes to some basic emulation, we can just play fine on these, let's say, powerful, let's say, mini PCs. I think where it's going to be more interesting is with N64. We're going to be testing out some Atomic Wave, and, you know, Sega Saturn will be interesting, some PlayStation Portable, PlayStation 2. I think there we're going to be finding some really interesting performance. Of course, but first we're going to be starting off with some old school craziness.
Choose your car.
Ready. Go.
Garibaldi is a dramatic run, though many spectators and riders alike complain that it is all over too quickly, due in no small part to the angle of descent and profound elevation that the course offers.
Next time, avoid large objects.
Fight.
Overall performance, it's quite good. However, when it comes to playing in some PlayStation 3, we can actually like push this thing to the freaking limit. And I must say that when it comes for playing just the PlayStation 3, it's not going to be a problem most of the time. We have seen a lot of stuff running quite well on these kind of chipsets. However, we do have less performance when it comes to the GPU, but I think this is not going to be an overall problem. We're actually going to be playing the game itself. So we have seen that still have some overall great performance, some of the emulators hitting 4K like PlayStation 2, or having some really high-end Dreamcast emulation with a great internal resolution. But let's get into some PlayStation 3.
Okay, let's go! This one's yours!
The Minis 4 mini PC is a little bit disappointing when it comes to certain parts. No RAM upgrade, but also when it comes to the onboard GPU, we do find some limitations, but it depends all what you want to do with it. Thank you all for watching, consider subscribing, hit that little bell, and join me on some more wicked mini PC love. Yeah.